Talkthrough edition of Young Gun. My name is Demetri. RyanLeaf is my guest this week. He is coming up in just a moment. First, though, I've got to tell you about my friends at Graffiti, Spirits, Axes, and Art in Cary. Now, last week when I recorded with Paul Feinbaum, I straight up forgot to record the conversation about graffiti. Then I went back and looked at it and realized I think it kind of works better to do it this way up top. Look, graffiti, you've heard Lauren and I talk about it. It is a wonderful place to watch football every Sunday. It may not be what you have in mind for your average sports bar experience, but then again, graffiti is not your average bar. High-end cocktails, axe throwing, there is something to distract the people that are not down all the way with football. But if you are into football, 19 TVs, weekly prize giveaways, great beer specials. You know about the bourbon pour specials, right? There is a different price point for all kinds of specials on bourbon pours at Graffiti. If you have not experienced it yet, it is something you need to do this coming Sunday when you watch the Texans and the Panthers go head-to-head. Support them because they support us. It is Graffiti, Spirits, Axes, and Art, 158 East Cedar Street in downtown Cary. All right, welcome to the midweek talk-through edition of Young Gun. No Lauren, just me and an expert to sort of help us get inside the mind of where Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers might be. This week, it is RyanLeaf. You know him from SiriusXM, makes regular appearances on Good Morning Football, the Straight Line podcast, and he is calling this week Georgia and Florida on Westwood One with my buddy JP Shadrick. Ryan, thanks so much for taking the time, man.
My pleasure, man. Yeah, exciting when this matchup happens between two rookie quarterbacks, right? It doesn't happen that often, especially those picked 1 and 2. It makes for a very entertaining week to talk about and get ready for.
And that's the reason that I wanted to have you on this week is not only did you experience that your rookie year, but also you experienced something that Bryce is going to experience this week, and it was different, right? You went through a head coaching change before your 7th game of your rookie season. For Bryce, it's just a new play caller, but even still, tell me as you are going through the challenge of trying to just understand what life in the NFL is for you, that added pressure of suddenly there is a whole new coach that you've got to listen to, a new plan that you have to get down with.
It is. I mean, it's not certainly as significant as losing probably a coach off the staff. The fact that the words that he's going to be hearing are similar, right? I mean, the verbiage, that's a big part of it at the NFL level, is learning a whole new offense, but also learning the verbiage of what that offense is, because you don't reinvent the wheel when it comes to football plays. I mean, pretty much everybody runs similar type of plays. You do it from different kind of formations and schemes and things like that. But what you call it's different. What I called it in college to what I called it when I got to the NFL. And then when the head coach is fired and the offensive coordinator, who has his own thought process, he steps into the role, and there's some things that are called differently. So I would expect that to be a bigger hurdle if that's the case. If the offensive coordinator coming in now, or who's taking over play calling duties, if he uses different verbiage, that could be something that could be a little more difficult for Bryce. But for him, and this was my biggest, fear or worry for Bryce, was that the guy has never had to never lost. He just has at Mater Dei, one of the biggest powerhouse high schools in Southern California, to Alabama, and playing, for an SEC championship, and doing what he did. And the 2 games they lost last year were on the final play of the game where he wasn't involved. In fact, he had the lead in both situations. So guy knows how to win. And what happens when that is the furthest thing that is coming right now, and that's a win. And how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it as a leader? Everybody wants change when losses happen, whatever that looks like, whether that's the quarterback. In this case, it's the head coach saying, I'm not going to call plays anymore, where he's been a stud at that for his entire coaching career, really. And so it's interesting going into a game against the likes of the Houston Texans, who have clearly showed that, they've figured out what they want to do offensively, and they've been executing it at a pretty high level in CJStroud's early part of his rookie year too.
At the most basic level, what is it that the people making these personnel decisions, whether it is, GMs, coaches, here in North Carolina, it's no secret that the team owner is very involved in some of these decisions sometimes. What do they lose sight of that a struggling rookie may need, or that might even be part of the struggle for a rookie quarterback?
Yeah, it's dumbfounding to me around ownership and maybe even upper management of some of the decisions that are made when you're dealing with a rookie quarterback. I mean, the franchise of this team is always going to be anywhere in the NFL is going to be the quarterback position. It's been shown to be profoundly that the quarterback. And so what you should be doing in every sense of the word is trying to acclimate him to make him feel as comfortable as you can. Because if you can get the best out of this player, the team's going to, be the recipient of the success, not just the quarterback. And so that always, makes me wonder what's going through the minds of those. If they truly believe that's a change and that can be a positive one, I guess. I mean, you go back to my year, you spoke about, they fired my head coach, an offensive minded head coach who I'd really come to like. He was aggressively kind of confrontational and really kind of challenged me, and I was starting to find my way a little bit, and then you let him go, and then you go out and hire a coach the next year that really has no semblance or reason to be a head football coach in the NFL because of a relationship with Bobby Beathard. So I never could quite get under. And now I don't ever want to take away any ownership or accountability on my part. What my part in my behavior was, what it was. And that's the biggest difference I've seen with some of these young quarterbacks is how much more mature and ready to be leaders of men that they are. Like, you got to ask the question, how would Bryce Young deal with, a Troy Aikman type of rookie year where he won no games?
Right.
What does that do to the psyche of someone who's always won? And how does he feel moving forward? The way the fan base comes at you, and how they did it with Tua, and the best thing in the world that happened for Tua was Mike McDaniel coming to town. Like those types of things for me are huge factors. And I don't know necessarily if ownership can really wrap their head around it, especially owners that have been in the business for some time, but they're still owners. They're not football minds. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like moving forward, because there has to be some results from this. Like if there's no results from it, people are going to look at it and go, it was lipstick on a pig type of mentality, and just to make it look better for the show, and everything we've gone through and did to get our quarterback, our coach, and the staff that we have, it doesn't seem to be working. And maybe it just takes more time. The patience level for owners and fans and people at the NFL level, it's non-existent. It's not real.
This may be a dumb question, but I can only find out if I ask you. So can you look at a quarterback and recognize if he may be going through some of the same struggles mentally and emotionally that you were your rookie year?
I feel like I have a pretty good handle on when I see it in terms of, and it's usually behavioral, the football stuff of it. It is what it is. And when things are going bad, things are going bad. I look back at the Colts game playing against Peyton, and I throw a like a 45-yard touchdown bomb to get the scoring going, and they throw a flag and they say my right tackle was too far off the line of scrimmage. Like little things like things that you're just like, oh my gosh. Like if we score there, that's a different football game. Yeah. And how that compounds, especially when you're losing in this league. Losing in this league magnifies things to 100 times its spot. And when that happens, there are casualties, and the casualties usually are the ones that sit at the table, coaches, the coordinators, the quarterback, the guys that get all the praise when things go well, but also get all the blame when things aren't going so well. So those are things that I tend to look for, usually around the behavior aspect of things. But I think Bryce Young has handled himself incredibly well through all these adverse situations as a rookie quarterback, trying to be the leader of all these men.
Hey, Demetri here. Just want to take a quick break to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you are listening to this, whether it is on your favorite podcast platform or you're watching the video on YouTube, do me a favor, please. Take a moment to like and subscribe. And while you're at it, please leave a comment as well. Your comments, your interaction with the show is what helps more people discover it. The more that YouTube and these podcast platforms see people interacting with the show, the more the algorithm wants to put it in front of other people. So if you like what you hear, do us a favor and help spread the word by leaving a comment, and of course, like and subscribe as well. It is how more people find out about Young Gun. And don't forget, every Tuesday when the regular show comes out, you can watch the TV version on Origin Sports. You've got it if you have any of the fast TV services, Zumo, Roku, every other fun word. Freebie, that's another fun word that's also the name of a service. And of course, Samsung TV Plus. Join us every Tuesday night at 7 Eastern on Origin Sports. I want to, I mentioned the Straight Line, the podcast you do talking about the NFL every week. I do want to encourage people to go listen to Bust as well, which is about your football career and life after football. And I genuinely, Ryan, like, I'm not saying this just because you're here. I think it's one of the best sports documentary podcasts that I've ever heard. It's so raw and honest. And in that podcast, you talk about the fact that maybe you haven't embraced being called bust, but you've embraced that there's nothing you can do about it at this point. And so I wonder if you can take me back to when you remember the first time hearing that word being thrown around about you in the media, whether that it was by somebody working with credentialed access to the team or just, some schmo calling into sports talk radio in San Diego.
Yeah, I found it's been more. I've never heard a peer of mine use that word. I liken it to. Let's put it this way: like I can call myself that. You can't.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's like the mentality that I have around it. For me to be self-deprecating and own it and understand it. Because really, in my mind, the idea of what someone identifies as being successful is a crazy situation. Right. when you
listen, we've talked about this before when it comes like on the TV side of things, when people make jokes about a show getting canceled after a single season. Like, do you know how successful it is just to even get it on TV in the first place? Right.
And that's the thing. I mean, when I tell people, especially when I go and speak to colleges everywhere, that there's only been 27,000 NFL players ever in the history of the NFL, the 100 years, it doesn't register. I think everybody just assumes you're a decent college player, you're going to play in the NFL, and that's just not the case. And so it's taken some time because I let it affect me for a long time. Clearly, it took me to a bad place, but I also think it's given me a ton of perspective around how I deal with it and how I view when I'm being an analyst around the draft, around the scouting combine, around the players that are getting the opportunities to play. Because I also have an understanding that they want to be successful. Every single one of them wants to be successful, and they've been so successful their whole lives. It's probably very foreign to them when things don't go as to plan.
We've been doing this podcast since the first week of the preseason, and I just sort of want your reaction to this because I think it speaks to how much we are demanding of these rookie quarterbacks, especially those of us that don't really know the realities of the league, right? Every week I can look at our comments on YouTube and see at least one person throw the word bust around about Bryce Young less than halfway into his first season in the NFL.
Yeah. And I wonder who the individual is throwing that around. A guy that's probably in his mom or dad's basement, wishing everything in their power that they could have been a bust in their eyes. Right. So it's all about how you interpret that. My biggest question, and I think I'm going to dive into this in the future, especially around our general population, is why it's necessary. Like, why is it necessary for you, whoever you are, to make it known that this person who was supposed to have a ton more success because of all the expectation, why is it so important to you to make them know that this is what they think of you? That's my biggest thing, because I don't know if I've ever truly in my life looked upon somebody else and tried to diminish or kind of disseminate something that somebody's done at such a high possible level. It's just odd to me, and I think that's probably why it's so intriguing. And to be really frank, I don't think for a moment Bryce Young's looking at that stuff. So
yeah,
those are just guys kind of screaming into a fan out there. But it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition around somebody who feels like that it's important for them to make it known that I think this guy is that this guy didn't meet expectations. And I also don't necessarily know if I like the fact that the general manager and owner and the people making the decisions to draft these players aren't taking on more of the burden, because guess what? In my sense, in Trey Lance's sense, and we had no say in where we were drafted. Zero. All you can fault us for is being great college football players and wanting to go to the NFL. Somebody else made that decision on where we should be drafted and what those expectations may look like. Now, did we take missteps along the way? Is there some sort of accountability there? Yeah. But I mean, what happens a lot of times is these players are discarded, have to wear that as an anchor, and, ownership just moves on to another quarterback. It's next up,
right.
And so I think there's got to be a deeper dive into the idea of like, this is, what is this? What is the point in saying that? Is it a point to try to humiliate and bring this guy down? Or are you just making a commentary on the organization with this player that, hey, drafted this guy, thought he was gonna be great. And the word just something that is associated with it, which is odd.
Yeah. Which I'll tell you, a guy I always think about in that particular context is Josh Rosen, because I think we lose sight of that. Yeah, he was a top 10 pick and the Cardinals did have plans for him to be a franchise quarterback. I think we lose sight of just how bad that offensive line was that he was behind his first year.
Yeah, and also they fired their head coach at the 1 year, and they went and got a coach that the only quarterback they could associate with them is the guy that was going to be number one in Kyler Murray. I mean, it's just, it hasn't. And once you get, I wouldn't say label, but once you get to carry that anchor with you throughout the league, you are going to be looked at in a negative context. Just to give you give you some context in this, Chase Daniel, who I've loved watching his career, what he started at in Minnesota, at Missouri, and how he's bounced around and made himself valuable as a backup. I think he played 13 years. This is his final year. He's kind of gotten into the analyst gig, started working for NFL Network. Somebody showed me his career statistics, and I have more touchdown passes than he does. And I wouldn't and could not believe it. I had to look it up myself. I'm like, and one you consider successful and one you consider not successful. So I just tend to go, it's all about where you're drafted. It's all about what those expectations are. And Bryce Young, love him to death. He's gonna have to, wear that expectation for as long as it goes. And if the team doesn't do well, and if they find a new head coach in a couple of years, and all of a sudden, Bryce Young's somewhere else, and he's just kind of, that's what they're gonna tag him with that. When you're the first overall pick, that's what it is. And it's unfortunate because you have no say in it.
Yeah. I want to wrap by talking about the game this week, and I will go back to the Bust podcast. And one of the things you said on there is that you realize that in a lot of people's minds, you and Peyton Manning are going to be forever linked because you went 1 and 2 in that draft. Leading up to the draft, there was some question about which of you would go 1 and which of you would go 2. That is obviously the case with CJStroud and Bryce Young, or at least, so far it's the case with them. You played Peyton week 5 of your rookie season. Here we are in week 8 rather. And these guys are going to play. Was it something you thought about at the time and was a distraction or a motivation for you? Or is it not something that you really considered until much later in life?
Well, for me, it was about righting the ship. I mean, I won my first 2 starts and then got terribly sick from a staph infection and tried to play against Kansas City and had the worst statistical quarterbacking game you can have. And then follow that up with yelling at a reporter during the week and then throwing 4 interceptions against the Giants at home and being booed off the field, even during a Make-A-Wish commercial that I had done. So, I mean, it had gone bad in a hurry. And Now we were heading to Indianapolis, where I'm pretty sure that Peyton and Indy had not yet won a game.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an opportunity there. We had beat them soundly in the preseason in our third preseason game.
And for people that don't remember, like Peyton's first game was a multi-interception game. I mean, there was reason to think that
the first 2 weeks. I was 2-0. They were 0-2. He had thrown like 6 interceptions, and I was thinking to myself, like, I've got this. I've won this.
Sure.
It's just not how it works. It's not how it goes. You got to compartmentalize and go week to week. And it was a tight game. Neither one of us played well in the game. Had an opportunity late to get down the field to try to get us the win. We didn't get it. Gets his first win. We go to 2-3. I think we go play the Raiders the next week, and then my head coach is fired. So, yeah, I mean, things can go from bad to worse pretty quickly at the NFL if you can't find a way to win. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. Just post that W, because they don't have pictures when the season's all said and done on what those W's look like. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Bryce. I think this is a real good opportunity for this football team to get off the schneid against a team that, I think feels pretty confident, but also has showcased they can play well, but still get beat by, teams that find a way to get defensive turnovers. And it's one thing that Carolina does really well is play good defense. So lean into that, utilize AdamTheilen like he has. And hopefully they can find some semblance of a running game that can take some pressure off Bryce in this matchup.
I'll let you go real quick. I do want to ask you, because you mentioned AdamTheilen. From my very uneducated perspective, there are times where it looks like going to Thielen is a way for Bryce Young to sort of snap himself out of whatever feels like it is going wrong. Is that something that you could see being true for a quarterback, or am I misinterpreting?
No, I think when you're young and you're struggling and you're trying to figure out things, you find a security blanket, whatever that looks like. A lot of times it ends up being a check down running back or a tight end. How AdamTheilen tends to operate around the line of scrimmage is very West Coast offense style, kind of with what Kevin O'Connell brought to the table and what Adam's kind of done throughout his career. And that makes Bryce feel pretty comfortable when he can get back to his spot, hit his fifth step or whatever it is, and get the ball out. And Adam's just a guy that's a great veteran who knows and has seen everything, and he's not going to put his young quarterback in a bad position. I would love to see them utilize Laviska Shenault a little bit more in terms of he's such a hybrid player. I don't know if they fully understand how to use him. If they put him in the backfield more like Deebo Samuel. But I've been covering him ever since he was at Colorado, and he's a special player. I would love to see him be utilized a little bit more to kind of take some pressure off of Bryce as well. So, but yeah, AdamTheilen for me, I thought that was a huge mistake by the Vikings, allowing him to get out of there. His veteran leadership, I think, and especially in a situation now with where Justin Jefferson is out up there, he would have fit in and as that leader. As I say that, they upset and beat the 49ers on Monday night, but he's going to be a calming influence for this team, especially if they struggle down the stretch.